Today, we will be taking a look at the 2024 presidential elections based on the newest poll from all 50 states. Before we get started, please subscribe to my channel for more election content and more election predictions. We will start by filling out the solid states for each candidate. For Kamala Harris, those states would be California, Oregon, Washington, Illinois, New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maryland, Delaware, the District of Columbia, and Hawaii. Moving on to the solid states for Donald Trump. Trump will win Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, Ohio, and Iowa, as well as Alaska. After the solid states, Kamala Harris stands at 166 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 146 electoral votes. We will now be moving on to the likely states for each candidate. Harris will likely win Colorado, New Mexico, Virginia, New Jersey, and Maine's congressional districts. Trump will likely win Nebraska's congressional district as well as Texas and Florida. Trump won both Texas and Florida both in 2016 and in 2020, and since then both states have shifted to the right and Trump will win them again. Moving on to the lean states for each candidate. These are states that will likely go to each candidate but has a small chance of flipping to the other side. For Harris, Minnesota will be lean blue, as well as New Hampshire. Biden won both of these states in 2020 and Harris maintains a strong lead here. For Donald Trump, Georgia and North Carolina will be lean red. In 2020, Biden flipped Georgia by 0.2%, but Harris is not performing as well in the polls as Biden was 4 years ago, and Trump leads in the state of Georgia as well as the state of North Carolina. Now, Kamala Harris stands at 225 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 250 electoral votes as we move into the final states that will decide the 2024 presidential election. Starting with the state of Michigan, Michigan will go to Kamala Harris by a very slight margin. Taking a look at the polls in Michigan, we see that Kamala Harris leads by 3.0%. This is a pretty good lead considering she has had very little time compared to Trump to campaign for her election. Her numbers are expected to increase once she gets more time to visit and campaign in these key swing states. Because of that, I will be giving Michigan and its 15 electoral votes to Kamala Harris. Moving on to the state of Wisconsin. Wisconsin will go to Kamala Harris by a very slight margin. Taking a look at the polls, we see that Kamala Harris leads by 3.7%. This is an even bigger lead than her lead in Michigan, which is a state she is expected to win. In 2020, Biden won Wisconsin, and Harris is looking pretty good to win Wisconsin again. Based on that, I will be giving Wisconsin and its 10 electoral votes to Kamala Harris, again by a very slight margin. Moving on to Maine. Maine's 1 electoral vote will go to Donald Trump by a very slight margin. This brings his total up to 251 to Harris's 250. Moving on to the state of Nevada. In 2020, Biden won this state, but when you take a look at the percentage of victory and compare it to Clinton's in 2016, Nevada was actually one of the states that shifted to the right in the 2020 election, and it has continued to shift to the right these past 4 years. And because of that, I will be giving Nevada to Donald Trump by a very slight margin. Moving on to the state of Arizona. In 2020, Biden flipped the state of Arizona, but this is one of the states that might flip back in the 2024 election. Taking a look at the polls in Arizona, we see that Trump leads in the latest and newest polls, and he is doing better and better and better in Arizona. Recently, RFK dropped out and showed his support for President Trump in a rally in Arizona, and since then, his numbers have just been getting better. Because of that, I will be giving Arizona to Donald Trump. And now, Kamala Harris stands at 250 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 268 electoral votes. However, if she wins these two remaining states and districts like Biden did in 2020, she will win the 2024 presidential election. Starting with the 2nd District of Nebraska, Harris will pull off the win here by a very slight margin. This brings her total up to 251 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 268 electoral votes as we move into the final state that will ultimately decide the 2024 presidential election, the Keystone State of Pennsylvania. Taking a look at the polls in Pennsylvania, we see that Harris leads by 1.7%. One of the main reasons Harris selected Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate was because of her need to attract voters in these mid-eastern states. Harris has to win the blue wall in order to win the 2024 presidential election. And taking a look at the polls, we see that Harris is doing pretty good in Pennsylvania. Her numbers are only increasing as she gets more time to campaign and rally. And after a very close race, Pennsylvania will go to Kamala Harris, giving her the 270 majority in the electoral vote, making her the next president of the United States of America. Harris wins 270 to 268, making this the closest election in American history. Please note that this is an election prediction, and a lot of these states could end up going different ways in the actual 2024 election. If you made it to here, please subscribe to my channel for more election content and more election predictions. Thank you for watching.